are now listening to a Forward Mile Podcast Network production.
All right, welcome into the Vegas Squares podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. We are here on what looks to be a pretty interesting NHL playoffs brewing here. We've got people licking people, calls being made or not made, depending on what team you're rooting for, and all of that mixed with some Kentucky Derby talk in this podcast. So on the phone joining me is Token Tony, fresh off of his good day on the books. Token Tony, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Just chilling, seeing what's out there tomorrow to bet. So
yeah, it's today's slate. I didn't like too much of it. I did bet the Lightning and a couple of baseball games. Actually had a profitable day. But I was talking with a buddy, and he texted me this morning, and he's like, I need a lock. And I'm like, those are the worst texts, first and foremost.
Yeah.
He's like, I need a lock. And I'm like, well, first of all, there's no such thing. I mean, if you've bet sports enough, there is no such thing as a lock.
Even 10,000 point or 10,000 money line favorite has a chance of losing.
Yeah, so I immediately start my day with that text message, and it starts me off in a bad mood. And I'm like, all right, well, let me do some research. I'll find you the play I like the most.
A decent pick, yeah.
Yeah, so I did some research, and I told him first, I'm like, just because I like it the most doesn't mean it's going to win. Things happen, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up giving him the Lightning today, which made me feel good, except for when Bergeron put that shorty in the back of the net to make it 3-2 Boston. I didn't feel great, but
yeah.
Stamkos with the sniper sent it to overtime, and then it was a fun game to watch. So
yeah, I kind of caught bits and pieces while I was at work. So
yeah, so I had a profitable day with the Red Sox winning, and I had the Mets, who got out of the gate like down 6-0, but made it a game at 8-7. So they gave me a little sweat. It's nice to have a sweat on the other way. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's talk about hockey because. I liked VGK2, not enough to place a bet, but I did lean that way today. You watched the games today. What were your thoughts on that first game, Boston versus Tampa Bay?
To me, that was more of a must-win for Boston than it appeared to be.
You think
how the
series is over?
How the Lightning were playing and came out of the gate as quick as they did.
Yeah, you think the series is over with 3-1 going back to Tampa?
I have a feeling Boston's in deep shit right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they shut her down in 5. I think Tampa Bay knows they have to go back to Tampa with a sense of purpose, because even though they won these 2 in Boston, it doesn't mean anything, having to come back with the pressure on you. Couple of calls I thought went in the, this game kind of was in the hands of the refs both ways. The officiating wasn't the greatest, but I thought consistently, I found myself seeing more makeup calls for missed calls in this game, which kind of led me to believe that something's going wrong in with the officiating right now.
Yeah, and officials should not really be doing that, and it just makes for a bad game once they start doing that, and especially if they have money on the line, that just makes the game go haywire almost.
Yeah, and of course, the fans in any sport, when calls go not your way, of course the ref sucks serenade start coming down.
But Twin sphere will blow up and burn to down. So
I mean, there's been a lot of armchair quarterbacks. I know we're talking about hockey, but been a lot of armchair quarterbacks and a lot, talking about a lot of these series. And with the exception of maybe one or two calls, I think the officials haven't been half bad this postseason.
They seem like they're pretty consistent. I would say almost consistent, but I would say pretty consistent. I mean, they're letting them play, they're letting them duke it out and get a little scraps in and all that. And they're calling stuff that should be called for sure. And, I mean, the one thing that surprised me in this last week of NHL is Wilson getting the 3-game suspension for his hit.
Yeah, I understand the repeat offender, where he attacked, and the extent of the injury on Aston Reese. To me, I thought 3 games was. I thought he was going to get 2 for sure. 3 games is a lot. I understand.
I thought it was going to be 1 game.
I understand.
I mean, just because the repeat offender and all that, I still thought it was going to be 1 game and only 1 game.
Yeah, I think honestly, what it is the repeat offender's 1 game. The actual blow was 2 games, made it 2 games, and the fact that Reese has a broken jaw makes it pretty much taking Tom
3 games.
Wilson, taking Tom Wilson out of this series up until Game 7 if they get that far. Which, I mean, Washington would be wise to try to shut it down here, try to win the next 2, but that's easier said than done, against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Pittsburgh's a little beat up right now. I mean, Malkin's still not 100%, and
well, Washington opens up as the favorite in Game 5 at home in the capital city tomorrow evening. What are your thoughts on that game?
What's the exact line that you have on that one posted?
I'm looking at Vegas Insider right now, and I have the consensus at -115, and Pittsburgh even money pretty much.
I would jump all over Washington on that price. I mean, it seems like Washington needs to win, especially at home, instead of fade a potential loss in 6 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched Game 4 between those two teams, it really seemed, Pittsburgh had to give it their all to beat Washington, and I think Washington, has the ability to control Pittsburgh. Even with all the talent that the Penguins have on their team, Washington's been able to step up in this specific series, given the fact that they've struggled over the last few years against the Penguins. In this series, Washington seemed to be able to do almost whatever they want as long as their goalie play is top-notch.
Yeah. It seems like Washington's been doing well, and they also have been conserving that energy that they need to make a deep run in the playoffs compared to years past where they're so down in the series that they're trying to play catch-up and just burn out and pretty much kill themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to lean towards that 115. Excuse me. I tend to lean towards that 115. It's been bet down, actually. So opened up at 125 according to Vegas Insider. Already been betting Pittsburgh's way, so the line's shifting closer and closer to each other.
Do you like when a line moves away? Does that kind of change your betting strategy almost a little? Like, say, with this, how the home team's been still the dog, but they're more of a closer to underdog almost.
Well, it really all depends on tracking the line movement. There's a few factors because whatever side I'm on, if the line moves the other way, you got to look at what time it moved. If it moves early, I got to figure that it's a lot of square money going on early, especially with Pittsburgh. They're a sexy team, Everybody thinks with them taking that game in Pittsburgh, they can get this one. They can close the series out in 6. If the line movement moves late away from you, if the line movement moves late away from you, you got to feel a little uneasy because that's usually sharp money coming in. I usually, when I bet football, I don't ever feel really good when the line moves away from me right before the game. So that's another situation where I have to. It all depends. There's a couple of factors on line movement.
Yeah, like on Tuesday when I was keeping track of Diamondbacks and Dodgers game with Kershaw on the mound. It opened up at plus 190 for the Diamondbacks at home. And then throughout the early part of the day, it shot down to plus 170 for the Diamondbacks at home. And I really started to still like it then. And then towards the end of the day, it seemed like some shark money started coming on the Dodgers and shot that line back up to almost where it opened at.
Well, I mean, you got to figure what were the Dodgers at that point? Minus 220 or so, 240.
210.
Yeah, you got to figure if you can take Kershaw at 210, at some point he's got to right the ship. That's what shark money was thinking at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a little uneasy for you. You know, you just really never know. I mean, the thing is at the end of the day, you know, you're the one investing your money. So wherever you think the side should be, you've got to live with the fact that the bet either cashes or doesn't cash.
Yeah.
So the line movement, you know, starts to make you feel one way or the other. But, you know, if you've done enough research and you feel like you have a strong enough opinion on a game to make a bet, you got to feel good about your bet no matter what happens. So almost feel like you're not even watching the line movement. Which the only reason you would be watching the line movement is if you feel strongly about a bet that you can get a better price on.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Because if you know, the crazy thing is like if somehow Kershaw, you know, was scratched from that start and then, you know, they had to put somebody in where the Diamondbacks became either closer to a favorite or somewhere, you know, where the Dodgers fell below 170. I mean, you find a middle there for free money.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Watching line movement can't get you too up or down on anything because at the end of the day, sharps lose, squares win sometimes. So let's talk about Nashville and Winnipeg and the game last night. I believe ended 2-1. Nashville, who has tied up the series, going back home, and they've, for as well as Winnipeg has played, Nashville has reclaimed the stranglehold in this series as far as home field advantage in the best of three. Nashville's rocking a 160 as a favorite right now. Tomorrow, consensus across Vegas Insider.
Yeah, to me it seems like the better value would be the Winnipeg.
Really? Why is that?
I think the true line should be more like Winnipeg plus 110, maybe plus 120. So Winnipeg's plus 140?
Yeah.
With Nashville being minus 160.
Yeah, but you got to figure both of these teams, neither has won consecutive games in the series. This game, and also the Washington game as well, have got to mean more to the home team at this point in terms of a must-win, because if both of the road teams, Winnipeg and Pittsburgh, do come out with victories, they are set up for great success in two series where every other game went to Winnipeg and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah, to me it feels kind of like a screw them line, like most people's probably going to bet Nashville, and that if you do like Winnipeg, it's probably best to wait right before puck drop.
That's a fair assessment. I think, yeah, if you think a lot of late money will move towards Nashville as a must-win at that point. So if you like Nashville, you should take it now, in your opinion. And if you like Winnipeg, you should hold off.
Hold off till right around puck drop, or maybe a couple hours beforehand.
Interesting. So an interesting thought process with that would be because I think Winnipeg, you're right, Nashville might get late money, but I think Pittsburgh's going to get late money on that. So maybe if you like the Capitals and the Jets, maybe holding off on your bets to see if you can get some decent value on both of those, or better value.
Yeah, wait an hour before the Washington game and probably book both bets around that if so.
Yeah, both totals rocking around 5.5. Both these series, you just never they've gone roller coaster, accordion style totals. I would lean on the Nashville game towards taking the over in that game because both goalies have been, I would say, suspect to say the least, with the exception of last game. Nashville's going to be rocking. I mean, I could see Nashville putting up 5 by themselves in this game, just coming out just firing every shot, and I could see Nashville getting almost the over by themselves.
8-5 final, something like that.
Oh, you never know.
Like the Pittsburgh Philly game.
Yeah, exactly. That was an interesting prop bet. You're right. Talk about the games today that happened. We talked about Boston and Tampa already. Vegas and San Jose just wrapped up here right before we started recording. What a hell of a game. Another game, Vegas dominated 2.5 periods, and San Jose still found a way to make this a game.
Yes. It seemed like Vegas was playing to conserve energy and was okay with giving up a couple goals, and then once they gave up the second goal, they're like, oh shit, it's getting too close now almost.
Yeah, Micheletti, the guy between the glass, said that once that second goal happened, San Jose's bench seemed to have a calmness to him, whereas in his opinion, Vegas, the coaches were kind of running around barking, and Vegas's bench seemed a bit nervous, according to him.
Okay, I would say that's definitely a fair assessment and all that.
Yeah, I don't have odds for Game 6. I would imagine San Jose is going to be a slight favorite in that game. The over/under probably a 5.5, like it has been all series.
It's been right around that number all series.
Yeah, my guess is San Jose would be in the 130-140 range. So what are your thoughts on Game 6? Vegas traveling to San Jose to try to wrap it up.
I think San Jose is just kind of too beat down right now. I take the dog in that. I take Vegas, and I'd probably take the over. I'm guessing like a 4-2 final, something around there.
Crazy thing is that, I mean, San Jose, Vegas, with the exception of Game 4, has looked pretty consistent this series. San Jose has looked night and day different from game to game.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what team's going to show up. I have a feeling Vegas doesn't want to experience a Game 7 at this moment. They're ready to just shut it down. So I'm with you. I'm gonna say Vegas comes out, because that Game 4 they came out. I don't know if there was an ego or if it was just a sense of entitlement, but they came out flat as hell, and I don't think they want to experience that again. And have to come out to play their first Game 7 in franchise history. I think they'll save that for the conference finals or maybe the Cup finals. Yeah, I'm agree with you. I'll take the plus money with the Knights to shut it down. And I don't have a opinion on the total, because I've been completely wrong about the totals in all 5 of these games. So I'm gonna stop myself.
You're gonna avoid those for right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the total lands directly on 5.5 and push.
It could go either way.
I don't know where that half goal is going to come from, but I'll find it.
It'll come from somebody throwing a beer can into the net.
There you go, half a goal. Or Colin Miller shoots one so hard that the puck splits and only half of it goes in the net.
I wonder how they would rule that if like half the puck goes into the net. Like if it like were to split or something. I would say that's probably no goal though. But
well, considering in 100+ years of NHL hockey that it's never happened, I don't think they have a rule in place for that.
I don't know.
But maybe they should.
Maybe they should.
Let's see if Colin Miller can blast one so hard to split it that he can create new rule books.
That'd be pretty disgusting.
So to recap tomorrow's games, we both you like Washington tomorrow to win. I like Washington as well. I like Nashville to win. You're on the Winnipeg train. With that one, specifically for the value. So you'll be listening to this on Saturday on 12-Ounce Sports Radio before you can make your picks. So tail us or fade us. The choice is yours, and good luck to you. I guess I should pimp 12-Ounce Sports Radio right here, since I just brought them up and I didn't bring them up in the beginning. We are, if you're not listening to us on 12-Ounce, if you're on a different avenue, we are on 12-Ounce Sports Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. and every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So if you can give us a listen over there, you can hear it live on 12ouncesportsradio.com. Let them know that we sent you over there, and we appreciate it. So I will move on right now from the NHL and we'll talk about a couple of Matts here, a couple of Matthews. One's trending upward, and one's trending far, far downward. And we'll start with the trending upward, and that's Matt Ryan, who just signed, I guess, the most lucrative deal in NFL history by average annual value, and that is a 5-year, $150 million contract, effectively ending Kirk Cousins' reign as the highest-paid NFL player at 2 months.
Yeah, and surprisingly, his reign didn't last too long, which, I mean, if anybody was going to resign for more money, it would be like Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, maybe Tom Brady, or Aaron Rodgers or something like that. So,
yeah, and now you and I have had the conversation about Matt Ryan. I mean, I'll give you his basic passing categories: 41,800 yards, roughly 260 touchdowns, 126 interceptions. He's had one MVP, obviously the same year he played in the Super Bowl. But in my opinion, he has been an average quarterback. Is this just a product of the market at this point because he's the next guy to get it done as far as a new deal, or do we really believe that at 32 years old, signing this guy for 5 more years at the highest average annual value per year is a smart move by Atlanta?
I think it's just hyped up because the market's so high right now for the quarterbacks and all that. The thing that surprised me with his deal, he's only got a $100 million guaranteed compared to Cousins, where his was like, what, 95% all guaranteed?
I believe it was a full guaranteed for Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
To me, it just seems
that's
after 2017, which, granted, they did make the playoffs, like I said, one game below the record they had in 2016 when they made the Super Bowl. But, he had his worst year in a long time, I'd say since 2010. He threw for 4,095 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, a 64% completion percentage, which is his lowest also since 2011. And then they were ousted by a team with a backup quarterback in the playoffs. Granted, it was on the road, but team they probably should have beaten, which, you can say what you want about the Philadelphia Eagles. They play those playoff games against each of those guys, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, 10 times. They're not going to win the majority of them. To me, I think this comes on the heels of one of his most mediocre seasons in a long time, which he still had one more year left on that deal. I thought maybe, unless there was just something.
See what he's made of or something before signing the extension. And
I mean, $30 million a year is going to be a product of just the way quarterbacks are compensated at this point now. Because the thing that scares me is Julio's contract is coming up here real shortly as well. And I'm pretty sure after seeing the man, Matt Ryan, get paid $30 million a year, Julio is not going to take a discount.
No, absolutely not. And the Falcons, are they going to really trying to keep Julio, or are they going to try and open up some cap space if they can? And to me, it seems like they would try and open up some cap space. And
well, the question I have is that now Calvin Ridley becomes more of a replacement option than a complementary option.
Yes, and that's what it's definitely seeming like, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, we've had this conversation. To me, Matt Ryan is a B-level quarterback, with the exception of his one Super Bowl MVP year. So, financially, I don't know if I agree with the amount of money that the contract was for. However, I understand why Atlanta did it, because I think they do have a very small window until Julio is due money to compete. And the NFC South is a tough conference. A tough division, and the NFC is a tough conference. That, if by any chance Ryan, decides to walk after next year, which is when his contract would have been up before signing this extension, they're in deep shit trying to rebuild this team in the midst of 3 teams who, Carolina's really good. They made the playoffs last year. New Orleans is good. They made the playoffs last year and should have been in the NFC title game. If not for some fluky play by Minnesota. So, and Tampa Bay is on the rise. You know, they're not a slouch team. I mean, they can probably go 7-9, 8-8 this year. So letting you're having to lock up Matt Ryan, who knows the system, instead of trying to retool at the quarterback position. Sometimes you just got to overpay for that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the leader of your team, and he's got to grab the rein by the horns and lead the team out there. So,
yeah, I mean, $100 million guaranteed, good for him. Do you see him playing out the 5 years of this contract, considering he's 32 at this point?
I see him playing at least 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure about all 5. I would say it'd be nice to see him do it, but I'm guessing 3 or 4 more years, and that'll be it.
I mean, the good thing for Atlanta is if they don't see anything on the horizon as far as being in college right now, as the quarterback position that they like, their next quarterback might be in 7th or 8th grade, or 10th grade at this point.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
So I'm curious to know if another reason they signed him was because they didn't see anything over the next 3 to 4 years in college that they thought could develop into their quarterback of the future. So I mean, even if he does play the 5 years at a dip in performance over those last 1 or 2, he's probably still better than what they can find. And at 37, if he's still playing at a level that keeps them competitive, then there's nothing. They might
sign a year, 2-year deal.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is at this point with these deals, you and I sit here and look and say, oh my God, $30 million a year for Matt Ryan, but when Aaron Rodgers' contract comes up and he's making 35, then we're like, man, Matt Ryan at $30 million seems like a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, it just. There's a lot of head scratchers, but at the same time, on the flip side, there's a lot of reasons I see that, it makes a lot of sense for Atlanta's organization. I really see that this may be the writing on the wall for Julio because there may not be enough money to go around, and there may not be enough balls to go around either. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'm sure based on his stature, he's not willing to take that big of a pay cut. So
no, not if he keeps having great years. So. Trending up, Matt Ryan. Trending down, Matt Harvey. That marriage in Flushing seems to be flushing itself down the toilet.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it.
I mean, can you remember the last all-star like this who was so dominant for, so dominant for, 4 years to be designated for assignment?
Yeah. I can't think of anybody in our generation, off the top of my head, but...
Yeah, actually, realistically, he was only dominant. He wasn't really dominant, but he was really only good for about 2 years. Now they look at his stats. He missed all of 2014. He's 34 and 37 over his 6-year career, including 0-2 this year with a 7 ERA, and he got shipped to the bullpen. And now they want to ship him to the minors, and he said no, so they said fine. They DFA'd, and so they got 10 days to basically trade him or release him at this point. Can you see anybody with a need for this guy who kind of has an ego on him at this point and really hasn't pitched that well in 4 years, 3 years?
I could see some teams picking up just based off his name and maybe willing to gamble a little with it. Those teams would be probably towards the bottom end of the spectrum, like a San Diego or like a Kansas City or something like that.
That's fair enough. You think he's a big enough draw in some of those cities that he might sell tickets if he's a starter?
He could. I think it might be some good idea for them to try. And, sure, if he doesn't work as a starter, if you sell extra seats, keep him as a starter, you're probably going to lose most of those games anyhow if you're going to put somebody else in. So,
right. Yeah, it never seems like he really got it going in his career. I said he had those 2 years. He made 29 starts 1 year and 26 starts the other year. But, his best record's 13-8 or 9-5, depending on how you look at it. He made the All-Star game the year he went 9-5. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was only because that All-Star game was in Queens that year. So I'll have to check.
Yeah.
So that's Citi Field. So I'm pretty sure that's the only reason he made the All-Star team at that point. So
yeah. His velocity peaked at 96 miles per hour, and that was 3 years ago. So, and I mean, he's great in the postseason, but
yeah, I mean, if Mickey,
that was about his claim to fame was his postseason stats. So,
yeah, Mickey Callaway came over and, from Cleveland, who's a pitching coach, and if that guy can't sign off on him after this amount of time, then I mean, I understand the assignment to the minors. I think they were just trying to rehabilitate him, in his confidence, but he said no.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was a Scott Boras decision to decline the minor league transit.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, after the surgery, his velocity is way gone down this year. So,
yeah. So he is going to more than likely be released because I believe that anything that thinks they can get him after being released is not going to give up any assets for him. The question is, if somebody thinks they can pick him off and wouldn't get him as a free agent, I honestly think if he can humble himself, get himself reset, maybe in the bullpen or as a fifth starter, he could really help a team, along the lines of Arizona or Colorado, these fringe playoff teams, Pittsburgh, St. Louis.
Maybe Atlanta this year or something.
Atlanta's coming out of the gate hot. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, I can see him, taking 2-3 months, coming back in late July, early August, and being a fifth starter or a long reliever for a fringe playoff team. And I think that's, in my opinion, worth, a shitty prospect or maybe a bad draft pick, because the Mets, they have 7 days. I thought they had 10 days. They have 7 days to trade him or release him. And I think at, day 6 or 7, they may try to just say, hey, we'll take what we can get. You just never know sometimes.
Yeah. Could be a draft pick or something or whatever it could be, yeah. Just take whatever what you kind of have to time in. Well, hopefully it's worth it to them, so.
Yeah, so, well, we'll see. He's got a big enough ego. If he can, if he can figure out a way to swallow that pride, he may be able to catch on somewhere and be a contributor. And who knows, he may be able to stick it to the Mets if they end up either playing each other in a playoff series or, maybe if he ends up at the Braves, like you said.
Yeah, divisional rival or somebody that could make or break the Mets season, I mean.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think he can still be a starter. I just don't think it's going to be with the Mets anymore, which is obvious. So.
Yeah.
So, on to your favorite, one of your favorite topics. I know you liked the Kentucky Derby. A couple of the horses you bet are not in the Kentucky Derby anymore, including Gronkowski.
Yeah, unfortunately. I picked two. This was, month and a half, 2 months ago or something. Both were kind of longer shots, and I was just taking a gamble, about $5 each on both of them, and one was 100 to 1 odds, one was 75 to 1, and neither of them made it. But Gronkowski was still up on the list until about 2 weeks ago, and then they finally took him off.
So what happens with that ticket? Do you get your money back? Or do you just lose that?
Just lose it. It's a futures bet, so.
Yeah, is that what they told you at the window?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it with the run I had last week, so it's only $10.
See, that to me is unfortunate because up until that Derby is run, I got to imagine with futures bets is if they do not participate, they should be counted as a scratch bet. I think that the refund should happen, but we'll have to talk to somebody about that and see what their thoughts are or their reasonings. The sportsbook would do that. It's
because they have so many horses out there and all that, and I remember looking at the beginning when they first came out with future odds for it. The favorite was 8-1 at the time, which I believe was Justify or Audible, if I'm not mistaken. And then it slowly crept down as horses were trading in and out, as well as odds were going down for even the longer shots.
See, I'm reading a couple of different places, like here on Bovada. On Bovada, it says when a horse is scratched, it means that it has been taken out of a race before the start of the race. A horse may be scratched in the days leading up to the race or right up until post time. The system marks scratches in the race pane, so you can't wager on them. However, if you have wagered on a horse prior to it being scratched, we follow the official payout results posted by the track. So that leaves me with still confused, because that to me sounds like oh, here we go. There's more to it. I got to click. Maybe if I read. It says win place and show bets involving a scratched horse are refunded. Exacta, trifecta, superfectas are refunded. Quinellas are refunded. Daily doubles, if the first leg of your ticket loses, it's considered a loss. If the first leg of your ticket wins, you will be refunded if the horse is scratched. So
yes.
You know more about horse betting than I do. I'm familiar with the win place show. That's easy for me to understand.
But in this situation, the horse isn't scratched. It just didn't make the Derby running.
Oh, I thought it was already in the Derby and then got scratched.
No. That's what a futures bet is. Sometimes for horse racing, like for these bigger races, like the Belmont or the Preakness or whatever, they'll have sometimes more horses than normally in that run. And
interesting. That's all different.
Yeah, it's like the golf. If you bet like a long shot for the Masters and they don't tee off, you're not going to get that money back.
No, I think that's a different thing. I think that you get the money back, because I bet Dustin Johnson last year, and I got my money back when he slipped in the shower.
That one was the weirdest incident that I ever heard, because I heard all places were given the money back due to that situation, but they were not required to by gaming.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, that one instance, just because he was such a closer to the favorite, they wanted to please people more than upset them and all that. So that was like, I mean, if you're betting on Tiger Woods a month before he goes to a tournament or whatever, he breaks his leg or whatever, they're probably not going to refund your money most of the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to get somebody on here who knows about sports betting or works in a sports book to give us some insight on that, because what I'm reading here, from everything I'm reading, is he was due to run in the race and did get scratched because the horse had a fever and was unable to make the 21-hour journey from England.
What, Gronkowski?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to relook at my account history and go from there.
Yeah,
I might have gotten it, I just didn't realize it. But
did you bet it online on William Hill or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to check your account, see what happens, or send them an email and say, hey, look, is this ticket going to, be refunded or not?
Be refunded. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to. It's not going to refund you already because the race hasn't run yet.
It hasn't happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I would send William Hill, some kind of email that says, hey, look, how will this ticket be graded? You never know. Like you said, you've already kind of given up on the money. So if they give it to you, great. If they don't, then c'est la vie, right?
Yeah, it's only a couple bucks anyhow,
So anybody else you like, you've picked up any steam in your mind that you're going to bet on That thing's coming up here real soon. It should be on right after the show.
Yeah, it should be. There was one prop I was looking at on William Hill. It was between two horses. It was between Hofberg, which is I'm looking at right now. He's 20-1 on the Derby odds, and my boy Jack, who is 30-1 on the Derby odds on Vegas Insider right now.
Yeah, my boy Jack on some of the books has jumped up tremendously right now, from what I understand.
Yeah, on William Hill right now, he's 6-1.
Wow, that's a hell of a jump in a few hours.
Yeah, earlier, about 10 hours ago, I saw him at 15-1, even.
Yeah.
And he's dropped that much. I put a bet in for my boy Jack over Hofberg at 5-4.
Now, the way the horse racing works is that these odds will change continuously, correct?
Yes, up until pretty much when they stage and when they start to run.
So even though you got them at, what'd you say, 20-1?
I saw him at 15-1. I put a little on him, man.
But that number can change for you, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe since it's a futures bet, it will not change. But if it is like typical horse racing, you'll get the out of the gate price usually.
Yeah, I wonder how that works because, I mean, this is not your typical horse race for obvious reasons. The Triple Crown is on a plateau of its own, but to me it would seem like any other horse race from a guy who doesn't really follow it, follows it from an outsider's perspective. I understand how horse racing and dog racing goes.
Well, a typical horse race is anywhere from like 5 to usually 8 different horses. This one's 20.
Right.
So it's a lot larger field. It's a lot larger purse. The purse for the Kentucky Derby is, I believe, $2 million. If I'm looking at that right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, and I mean, I'm looking at all the trainers, the jockeys, and all that, and there's a couple different trainers that have multiple horses in here. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting too.
I tell you what, I'll make you a prop bet since I know nothing about any of these horses. I'll get 2 horses, you get 2 horses, draft style. If one of our horses wins, it's $50.
Okay, fair enough.
All right,
you go first.
All right, I'll take Justify. He looks like he's the favorite.
All right, I'll take Audible.
All right, well, since we've gotten the favorites out of the way, I'm going to go with... Let me see which name just sounds really cool to me. I'm going to go with Flame Away.
Okay. I'll take my boy Jack.
Okay, so that's cool. So we'll have $50 on that. So I have Flame Away and Justify, and you have Audible and my boy Jack.
Sounds good.
You have a trainer who is 0-2 all time, who also doubles as the jockey, who, if I can read this correctly, has won 3 derbies.
That's a pretty interesting stat.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of these guys, a few of these derby guys. Let's see, John Velasquez has won 2 derbies. Victor Espinoza has won 3 derbies. I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Kent DeSormo is the guy we're talking about on My Boy Jack, who's also the trainer who's won 3 derbies as well. So there's a couple of guys. A lot of guys in this field have not won. And then there's 2, 3, 4 guys making their debuts. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I know the thing with Justify, he's looking to become the first horse since Apollo to be not 2 years old to win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a curse that's been around since the late 1800s and just something that overcast all the younger horses and all that stuff.
Well, considering the only name I know in horse racing is Bob Baffert, I'm going to feel pretty good about my pick there.
Yeah. And of course, you know how the weather can affect
all of this.
Horse race and all that too. And I mean, last year, if I'm not mistaken, it was a rainy but fast track. So
you never know; anything can happen.
Yeah. Yep. It's the greatest 2 minutes of sports, as they say.
I've got a great 2 minutes too, but it ain't sports related. Just kidding. Let's not go down that road. Anywho,
Yeah.
Well, we thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. You can catch us on all of our outlets, vegassquares.com. All of our episodes are posted, as well as snippets and articles that are written by the staff as well on the website, vegassquares.com. You can catch us every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern on 12-ounce Sports Radio. It is 12ozsportsradio.com. Listen to us on their website and tell them we sent you. Also, we are on the Forward Mile Podcast Network, forwardmile.com. You can subscribe to their daily fantasy services, which are the best in the business, and you also get access to our podcasts as well. So if you do decide to sign up for their service, let them know we sent you, and we appreciate you going over that way and win some money in DFS. I'd like to do the same if only Nevada would open this fucking shit up. But that's an argument for another day.
Yeah.
Also, you can email us at any time or catch us on Twitter. Our email is vegassquares@gmail.com. My Twitter, I tweet from the handle vegassquares, and Tony tweets from the handle tokentony89. Also, Spike McAwesome, if you want to get at him, he's not on the podcast today, but he's usually one of our 3 hosts here. You can catch him at Spike McAwesome on Twitter as well. Anthony, anything else other that we haven't talked about that you're looking forward to this weekend?
Not as of now, but if I like any picks, I'll post them on Twitter, and I've been doing pretty well this last week.
Yeah. Let's get your Action Network to get you actually. Let's get you on a. Let's get you. What do they call it? Tracked. This is the word I'm looking for. Also, you can you can catch my. I post them every day on the Twitter or on Facebook, our Vegas Squares Facebook. I've been tracking my picks through Action Sports Network, which is a pretty cool app. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with it. If you're not, you should check it out on your app store, Action Sports HQ. It's free. They have a free app that I've been using right now, and they also have a pay service that a couple people have told me is pretty good. I haven't checked that out yet. I wanted to make sure that I liked the app before I decided on the pay service. I
heard with the paid one you could check like your parlays and your teasers and all that. And
well, you can do parlays, teasers, and also you get access to not only where the percentage of the money is going, or excuse me, where the percentage of the bets is going. You can get access to where the percentage of the money is going. Excuse me, as well.
Yes.
Which is definitely a heavy benefit, like you talked about with line movement. Percentage of the money is usually another good factor as well.
Yes, indeed.
So, once again, we appreciate you listening to this episode of the Vegas Squares podcast. For Token Tony, I am Aaron. We will see you next time.